красивые блики.
Они нищие были очень.
Ой, не то слово.
За что они не подходят?
Oh, Dulce. Hey, we were thinking to wait for 2 minutes. Hi, hi. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for inviting.
Well, Esalen, our programs started in 1962, 51 years ago. I had lived at the Sri Aurobindo ashram in India and had been inspired by the vision of the Indian philosopher Sri Aurobindo when I was at Stanford, when I was just 19 and 20, 1950-51. And Aurobindo's vision was that the universe, all the universe, from the Big Bang on, is slumbering spirit. In the German philosopher Schelling's phrase, slumbering spirit.
Can you help me with the word slumbering?
Sleeping.
Sleeping.
Sleeping spirit. And in the unfoldment of the universe, over these 13 billion years, science tells us, you can be seen as God waking up. The divine unfolding in the course of time through all the evolution of species. This is not a new idea, but it came with force into European thought in the 1790s and the early 1800s with the German idealists who influenced Dostoevsky. And many of the Russian thinkers, like Solovyov, shared this vision that the universe is God waking up. Now, in the human sphere, among us, now, we are in a period where we're shaking off the old religions. But so the phrase is spiritual but not religious. This is a phrase now that more than half of Americans under the age of 30 describe themselves with. Spiritual but not religious. Now, in 1962, when we started, we wanted to dramatize this worldview.
So it was not like this when you started.
What
was the idea around
this idea, this feeling, this way of understanding the world as the immanence of the divine in everything, but that it comes to consciousness in human nature in the course of time. This is the vision.
Through us?
In us.
In us.
When we have a mystical experience, when we get a glimpse, in nature, or through a book, or through a line of poetry, or through music, or however it comes, or in a church, or when we're in love, all the ways in which we are led to believe there is something we might call God, the divine, you see. Okay.
Also when, for example, I feel like a present moment, that now, is it the same?
Well, that's the way the Buddhists talk.
Okay.
And many of the Indian Vedantists. Be here now. But what we are struggling today for is a philosophy, a conceptual framework, a way of thinking that adequately describes what is trying to be born in us and getting rid of the old superstitions, you see. Now, that Esalen flew under that flag. Spiritual, but not religious, and we wanted to have a place where the most powerful thinkers in the world could come and dramatize this vision. they came. Arnold Toynbee, the most famous historian probably in the world then, in 1962. Paul Tillich, the leading Protestant theologian in Europe and America. Abraham Maslow, famous psychologist.
Yes.
Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy. The whole somatics movement, Stan Grof,
Yes.
who comes all the time to Russia. These people came to Esalen, and we were the first place that specialized in this vision. But not with any dogma. We like to say no one captures the flag. See, it's a democratic vision, but focused, you see, focused on this way of seeing and experiencing the world.
Right.
So the whole thing evolved into experience of a meditation practice, Gestalt therapy, Rolfing, sensory awareness, the somatics approaches. Literally hundreds of practices, I call transformative practices, were dramatized at Esalen. And I was attracted, as this developed, first by the Russian philosophers, Solovyov, Berdyaev, Merezhkovsky. I could go on. And Esalen published 9 Russian philosophers in a series of these philosophers who shared this evolutionary thing. And Selnaya Lichnost, the integral personality, and the doctrine of theosis, the divinization of human nature. This is the way Solovyov talked, the way Dostoevsky talked. So that was a big influence on me personally, which led me to go over to Russia in 1971 and meet these telepathists, Karl Nikolaev. We did the first telepathy experiments between Moscow and San Francisco. And
How did they let you? I mean, how did they?
Well, they let us.
Yes.
No, it was permitted. It was the KGB was watching. And
So they were involved. I mean, they're kind of.
no, everybody. We were all always tell both the CIA and the KGB what we were doing. This is all through the Cold War, and these exchanges were going on. You see, and we tell everyone what we're doing. We don't have any military secrets, and we were never socialists or communists. We went. They were having seances. Talking to the dead, right there in Moscow. Some of our friends, they were going to, in the Kremlin, they were doing healing ceremonies. Seriously. And we were unbelievable. I mean, to us it was amazing. So we then started these exchanges. I want to say this because Dulce and I love Russia very, very much. And we think that there is a tremendous future in Russian-American exploration together of consciousness itself, of what human nature is in its depth, without dogmas. This has nothing to do with capitalism, communism, or it doesn't have anything to do with the Russian Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church, Jewish, Islam. No, looking at it as free humans. And believing that God exists. And so this is a little capsule of Esalen. It's not simply an American place. It's a meeting place for different cultures, going after the question.
And teachers also. No.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
teachers,
Teachers.
the teachers and researchers and visionaries, exploring the undiscovered country of human consciousness. And the human potential. That's the flag we flew under. Human potentialities. And this evolutionary vision. So it was right for the taking. It was right there for us. Somebody was going to do it. We did it. To dramatize the human potential across cultures.
So you felt it in the air, kind
Yes.
of. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a tide in the affairs of men, which if taken at the tide, if taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that. We caught the wave, and That's why we
amazing.
became famous very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And by 1970, 8 years later, there were about 150 centers in the United States modeled on Esalen.
I know that when you kind of like opened it, you probably had to bring teachers in or meet some people who would do it with you, like organize
yeah.
a team. Yes.
Yeah.
So was it difficult? Did you have to convince them, or were they
No.
all like-minded people? Or
No, the miracle for us, it was a standing miracle that here, when we started, we had this beautiful property. But I and my partner were totally unknown. We had a kind of broken down motel. It was an old family estate. We had all that land, but the vision is what got them to come. So here were these world famous people who might, in those days, that's 50 years ago, and they might get $2,000 for a lecture. Now they would get 20,000 or some of these types or whatever, 50,000. Now $2,000, and they were coming. I was having them come for $100, and so it wasn't the money; it was the vision. So we never had any problem, either for the leaders or for the people who wanted to participate. We always had to catch up with the market. In other words, we didn't have to. We never advertised. We had a brochure to let people know. So it was all word of mouth, and it got to be very powerful.
So the book that you published and your main research is about the body. Like, why the body? Why not the spirit?
Well, it's more precise, Xenia, to say that book, The Future of the Body. It's in Russian. Better to say the future of human nature, because there is no body without soul, and I believe no soul without body. If you believe in life after death, the soul has a body on the other side. See, that's what all these occult esoteric traditions say. And we're doing research on that actually at Esalen and promoting it. So it's always body-mind. Dostoevsky wrote a letter near the end of his life. He was friends with Solovyov. They were close, the great Russian philosopher. So he said, I and my young friend Vladimir Solovyov no longer are interested in the salvation of the soul, but in the resurrection of the body. Now that was a code word and a tradition within Russian esoteric thought of this subtle body that leaves this body at death, and also can appear with certain saints who project themselves in a subtle body to a distance. I've gotten interested, and Esalen's been very interested, is the transformation of the flesh itself. This is the doctrine of theosis in the Eastern Orthodox, Russian Orthodox religion. The idea that the flesh itself is capable of transformation. Now, again, mainstream medicine would say, well, that's too far out, except psychosomatic medicine today is very, very important. If you reduce stress, you get healthier. If you have a better diet, you get healthier. So every doctor would agree on this. But when you get now into spiritual training, that say you can go into these higher states in Tibet, in these caves of Tibet, these tantric practices, the rainbow body, and there's testimony to suddenly they're shimmering, and these transformations. There are many signs in the esoteric literature. You can look at the eyes. You can look at many marks. The marks of theosis. The marks that your flesh is changing. Now, what I have found, that this exists among athletes.
And 1980 was the Olympics in Moscow. And somehow or other we were able to get there, even though our own president, Carter, boycotted the Olympics. So we were able to go, and we went to Tbilisi, where they were having a conference before the Olympics. And so all of the big Olympic coaches and very few athletes because they were in training, but the coaches and the teachers from all over the world were there, but very few Americans. And at that time, Michael was writing a book on sport. It was first called The Psychic Side of Sports. Now it is called In the Zone. And he wrote a beautiful paper and gave that paper on the subject at the conference prior to the Olympics, and it was a big success.
You're beyond your normal self. You're in a state in which, in sports, where everything's on the line. Let's say a high diver. Let's say a ski jumper. Let's say a football player. A shooter. When everything goes exactly right, you train and you train and you fail and you train and you succeed and you fail. You succeed and go on. Suddenly, whoom, it's happening. And you can't miss. The marksman who can't miss.
You know it's going there.
You know. You know. Now the thing is, the term though is used loosely. It's there are many, many kinds of ways being in the zone. So we had 100 zones. I mean, there are many zones. But generally speaking, in the zone is shorthand. It's a label for all of these supernormal experiences. But particularly with this thing when you're in alignment with what you're doing and you're going beyond yourself.
Michael has thousands of stories that golfers have sent him about that
This
part of the
feeling.
zone, that being in the zone. And from there he met a wonderful researcher in sport from the East Coast, and together they wrote the book in the zone with all of her research and all of her anecdotal evidence and the material that Michael had been gathering.
It's probably, difficult to describe it, this feeling now, isn't it?
Well, there's a
could-
lot of
could you
things to say.
Try,
So you can say, there are many characteristics, and athletes typically don't have enough words to describe it,
Yeah.
but you can draw it out of them. For example, the feeling that you're bigger. This is commonly
Changing
said.
of size.
A bigger person, more power, extraordinary freedom. And this is where the mystical language is great. You're bulletproof, bulletproof.
Yes.
In other words, a bullet would come through you and wouldn't touch you. In the spiritual tradition of Christianity, there's impassibility. Nothing can touch you.
So it's an inner feeling.
Well, it's more
And
than
it's-
that. It's more than just feeling. It's feelings. It's knowing. It's seeing. And it's supernormal doing. In the zone, you're doing things. You're throwing the pass. You're shooting the thing. Whatever it is you're doing. And your body starts to amaze people, the way you look. Sports psychology has developed this. The Russian Olympic Committee has gotten way out ahead on training the mind. I don't know if you're aware of this, you should be interviewing some of these trainers. But visualization techniques. You listen to some of these coaches, American or Russian, you'd think you're talking to a Tibetan monk. For example, let's say you're a diver, 10-meter board. All right, now when you visualize, it's not enough to merely see it. You have to smell it. And if you can hear your body going through the water without a sound, when you see an Olympic diver, whoop, just no splash. Okay, when you're up there on the board, you feel it, you see it, you smell it, you taste it, and then you do it. You create a subtle body. And it does it, and your flesh follows. Shoop. Now
Now I see how it comes together, the subtle body and
you build a subtle body in your mind. You build it in your mind. In the Tibetans, they talk about the tulpas. You build these things in your mind, and it goes whoosh, and it leads you. Now, even more than that, these golfers imagine a golf shot. They visualize it. they see it. My book is filled with this.
Yeah.
Now, you then go into a kinesthetic feeling, kinesthesis. You feel what it is in your body to produce this shot. It's a very unnatural act. To have a shot that's going to, maybe you're going to need to curve it this way, or maybe this way. This is called a fade. If you're a right-handed player, this is a fade. This way is a draw. But a draw that draws too much is a hook, and a fade that fades too much is a slice. So you want a fade, not a slice. So they're developing words, and they're developing, okay, and then, but you learn how to do this. It's very delicate. Okay, you visualize it like the high diver, okay, and you visualize the ball's flight itself, and I totally believe, and many of my colleagues believe, that affects the flight of the ball once it's on its way. So it's not over when you make the movement. It's still happening with that ball. So what you see is what we call body English. It's a phrase where you move your body. You'll see them doing this. It's like they're talking to the ball. Now this is all natural. It comes out of a deep knowing that neither their parents, nor their coaches, nor any priest they ever met, no one ever told them this. They get to it, and that's what we can now bring in, is more awareness. We can bring in from Tibetan, we can bring in from Catholic tradition, secrets from the Russian Orthodox Church. All of this stuff now, like a volcano, is erupting into the world. This is what the psychology channel that you guys have, is to open the doors into these huge new horizons of human consciousness. That's what is happening. This is the number one story. This is psychotechnology. Not just making an Apple computer. This is making an Apple computer of the soul. I mean, this is a tremendous creation that's going on in the world today among the avant-garde elites in body-mind transformation.
Amazing.
It's happening now.